Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the Goldberg Show. Me and Devin are happy to be back. I think it's been 11 months too long, isn't that right, Devin?
Yeah, it's been felt like way too long. Both just been so busy, with life and all the craziness that's gone on in the last 11 months has just driven both of us insane. We've talked, throughout our hiatus of recording, we've talked like, yeah, we get back into it, but man, there's just so much crazy stuff going on. When's the best time to jump back into it? And finally, one day, Alec texted me. He's like, "We can't wait no longer, man. We gotta get back into this. We gotta get our voice and our opinion out there and talk about all the terrible things happening in America right now. There's not a whole lot of good going on when you talk about under the current administration."
Oh yeah, definitely. And for people that don't know, Elon has finally released me. So after I think it was 2.5 years, I am finally back on Twitter. And so for those that don't follow me on Twitter already, my @name is at agoldie314. And that's where I'm going to be posting most of like updates for the podcast from now on. Facebook has just completely just gone over the hedge again. I mean, they put me on a community strike again. Here, actually, I'll show the podcast. They told me that my post feeds will be marked. Where is it? Where is it? Oh, maybe they took it down. At one point, though, maybe I took a screenshot. They told me that my post feed would be basically lower. Like they're not going to show it. Like it's going to be restricted.
Yeah, just
Like
put you lower on the list of people's feeds.
right. So I just wanted our viewers and audience to know, like if you guys are trying to get live updates on when me and Devin are going to be coming out with a episode, please check Twitter and follow me. And
And
Devin,
yeah,
are
we've
you
we've
are you
talked
on
about.
Twitter?
I am on Twitter. You can follow me at Twitter. I don't know my hand off the top of my head, but I'm sure able to post it. And on the next episode, I'll have it. But I repost a lot of political things, from Ben Shapiro.
Hmm.
And
I think Twitter's actually getting really good now. Here, and this is my personal belief, because I don't believe or I don't like any sort of news network whatsoever anymore. I think Twitter is the best platform if you want to go to free journalism. Like I follow this one guy. His name's Andy Nego. I follow another gentleman. His name's Danish. I can pronounce his last name wrong, but these are like independent journalists that are
so
reporting stories that the media doesn't report, and they're showing footage that the media would not show you on cable television.
I was talking to someone today, and it was just someone in passing. Just someone you meet at the store or something, talking about politics,
Hmm.
and they were like, the best way to explain what Twitter is to the modern news society, it's free market news. It's like we talk about free market economy. There is no agenda being had. It's open information, and that's why Elon Musk bought Twitter so that
Yes.
everyone can get their news from a fair way, from the people that are upfront, seeing these things and hearing these things and have evidence behind these things. Because the number one thing we've always talked about, between me and you, and that's been our episodes is you see all these things on CNN, MSNBC, and even Fox News, and you're
Hmm.
like, what proof do you have of that?
Right.
Well, blah blah blah. We heard it from this source and this source, this source, this source. When you get it on Twitter, you're getting like firsthand evidence of these things.
Right.
Like people,
They're
like the
there.
border officers. I've watched numerous border officers. At the end of Title 42, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, actual phone video, undoctored video of these border guards and people crossing. Where they shouldn't be crossing to our country. Different like I love the town hall meetings. I love
Yes.
watching these people go to their cities and their counties and their school boards and just really get their voice, heard. I don't
Yeah.
know if you heard the one in Maricopa County, Arizona. There's a guy, he has dreads, red dreads, and he just tears into the county, saying that they're ruining this country by stealing the election in Maricopa County.
Oh.
That's just the one thing I love.
And yeah, so that's and also what I want our audience to know is so this episode me and Devin are going to be talking about the town hall meeting that happened previously this week on Wednesday with former President Trump. And something I want to note for the audience to know is this is the first time that Trump has been on like a major news network since he's been banned from all platforms. Like this was the first time. And something I wanted to show you, Devin, is I think maybe the far left were thinking like with them putting him on this segment town hall meeting hosted by CNN. I just want to put that out there. This was hosted by CNN. They were probably hoping that like maybe he would fumble or maybe look bad on stage. Like that's what they were hoping for. And I have a video to show you guys. So whenever you see some liberal losing their mind over the town hall meeting the next day, I think that usually means that President Trump did pretty well. So let's check this video out real quick. Oh, and by the way, this guy is Rick Wilson, who is a liberal talk host. He is on Twitter as well.
With CNN, Caitlin Collins, and whatever the fuck they thought they were going to get out of this, they instead have set a match to democracy once again. You are letting an insane person stand there and make people giggle and laugh when he jokes about rape. You make people giggle and laugh when he jokes about abortion, when he calls an African American police officer a thug. This insanity should be pulled off the fucking air. Chris Licht, you should be ashamed of yourself. This is astoundingly bad for the brand of CNN. It's astoundingly bad for the country. And it's astoundingly bad, honestly, folks, for every other Republican candidate in the primaries. Wrap that shit up. It's done. You saw this tonight. You know you can't beat him on the stage. Everybody else, oars up. Time to go to work because he's going to be the nominee. This shit is unfucking believable. I've never seen anything like it. It is a disaster of the highest fucking degree.
So let me touch on something real quick about that. We've both seen this video. We both, you've seen it. I've seen parts of it. We just watched it before we started recording, just to kind of touch up on all this. And Trump does call this cop a thug. And if anyone who's ever listened to this podcast knows that we're pro police. There's bad things in every profession, but I would like to say that generally we are pro police. And to call that police officer a thug, is there better verbiage that could have been used by President Trump? Absolutely. Does it do what he does best? Get straight to the point. He doesn't bullshit. He doesn't beat around the bush. Is exactly how I feel about it. I don't know how you feel about it, Alec, but to me, that's just getting to the point, telling it the way it is. He killed her in cold blood.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you say. And before we start showing the segments of the town hall meeting, I want the audience to know that me and Deborah are gonna be talking these topics in order as the video goes, and I will give out time segments if you want to try to skip ahead in the video if you're watching this on your own time. You could. I'm gonna say the time so you could look at it during the podcast. But something I wanted to say right before we start showing the video is oh gosh, I just lost train of thought. Anyways, yeah. So with the town hall meeting, the first topic they talked about was voting for elections, and I think that was a great way to start things off. What do you think, Evan?
Absolutely. We've talked about January 6th more times, but just even off mic, me and you, than anything we've ever talked about.
Yes.
Because it holds such a standard to American democracy. If one party feels that it's a rigged election, and they have that right to come up with evidence, which Trump and his all of his party and his cabinet and all the people around him have proof. We have video proof to prove essentially that the election was rigged in most places.
Right.
Places 170% of the county voted. We have videos of them stuffing ballot box. We have boxes. Sorry, we have pictures of people voting in ballot boxes, or sorry, in the in the pews, whatever you want to call them, voting when they were election officials.
And
we have evidence.
And something that President Trump says during this town hall meeting, which I don't know if I've wrote down the time that he said this exactly, but he does say this if you do want to watch this full interview. And by the way, I want to note that me and Devin are getting these videos off Rumble. Actually, something that's interesting, if you type in on YouTube President Trump town hall meeting 2023 compared to Rumble, on YouTube you only get segments. You will not get the full length video. Like I've tried searching for this on YouTube, like full length, and you cannot find it. So besides the fact though,
if you don't use Rumble, you need to use Rumble. It's great.
Yes, absolutely. Starting with the town hall meeting with President Trump, the first topic that he will go over is voting for elections. And here we go.
Here in New Hampshire, as you know, he did vote for you in 2020. Scott, what's your question for the president?
Hi, President Trump. Welcome back to New Hampshire.
Thank you.
Will you suspend polarizing talk of election fraud during your run for president?
Will I suspend, excuse me, what?
Will you suspend polarizing talk of election fraud during your run for president?
Yeah, unless I see election fraud. If I see election fraud, I think I have an obligation to say it. And you know what we went through a short while ago has really put our country in a big problem. I hope to do that. I hope we're going to have very honest elections. We should have voter ID. We should have one-day elections. We should have paper ballots instead of these mail-in votes. But the answer is yes, and I hope that it's going to be very straight up, because if it's going to be straight up, we're going to win the election.
So you will suspend talk, to his question, about the 2020 election on the campaign trail?
I guess we're going to just win. We're at a point now, we're getting so close. Let's just win it again and straighten out our country.
One other question on this. When you've talked about the 2020 election results in the past, you once suggested terminating the Constitution. Do you stand by those comments?
No. You were able to do certain things. I'm not talking about terminating the Constitution. I'm talking about cherishing the Constitution. The Constitution says that we're supposed to have legal and well-maintained and well-looked-at elections, and we didn't have that. I cherish our Constitution, but we have to live up to the Constitution. We weren't living up to the Constitution.
I was just saying there's no evidence of that election fraud. You did once tweet.
You're supposed to say that, but I'm glad you say that. But look, that was a horrible election. That was a horrible election. And unless somebody's very stupid, and I know you very well, you're not stupid at all, but you perhaps are given an agenda, or you have an agenda. Look, we have to have honest elections in our country. We have open borders. We have.
Yeah, so that's the first segment. If you guys want to watch that, that starts at 5:50. But yeah, I completely agree with that, Devin. I mean, seriously, if you cannot have a fair election in a country of a free world, supposedly free world, then just toss it out the door, you know what I mean? Like, especially like he said, if you can't even question it, like how, I don't know.
So I agree full-heartedly with what Trump said. Now, as we go through this video, I want to point out one thing to our listeners and our viewers, is that you'll notice her name's Caitlin something, I remember her last name. It seems that she really digs at Trump. So as the further on as this video goes, and the more our listeners and viewers will see this and listen to it, is you'll notice that she's really digging into him. She says numerous times after he brings up the rigged election, which again we do have evidence of, and we can you can go back and watch our January 6th episode where we give play, and more has been uncovered since then. But she goes on to say that you can't keep calling it a rigged election, and he absolutely continues to do it because he knows that he has the proof.
And he said it, you heard him say it. He's like, yo, you have an agenda to follow. I mean, if people aren't waking up yet, which I think a lot more people are starting to wake up, it's actually crazy. People I know that were not political, let's say 2-3 years ago, like just didn't really pay attention to politics, they are now realizing, like, oh, he's getting, like, people that are speaking out are getting silenced. Let's just put President Trump aside for a second. Let's look at doctors when it came to COVID. You could even bring up Andrew Tate in a different scenario. We don't even have to go down his path, but I mean, he was just speaking out against the hierarchy, and he got silenced. I think people are now starting to realize that there is something that there is something that President Trump is saying that people are listening to.
She says, and I don't believe it was in that video. I think it was probably one of the parts that got, cut out. And when they talked about January 6th, is she says in the interview, they listen to you better than they listen to anyone. And I full-heartedly believe that, people want to call followers of Trump a cult or that we blindly follow him. But I don't know a single person that I've ever talked to in passing about being pro-Trump or even being undecided about Trump, obviously, that I have things that I dislike about Trump. We talk, he talks in the video, we'll get to it in a second, about, the bump stocks and then, and all these things that he talks about. I don't agree with him full-heartedly, but gosh dang it, the man just gets stuff done. And that's
Right.
why I believe that people follow him so wholeheartedly. And they get into the timeline of the January 6th and the election being rigged and all that. And again, evidence is not evidence to the Democrats because it doesn't fit their agenda and their narrative. You
Right.
could have the video proof, and we do have video proof that the election was stolen and the election was rigged.
There's documentaries about it.
Yeah, I mean, you literally could see people stuffing votes in the ballot, writing ballots, putting them in the ballot box, and counting them. There was 5 or 6 precincts in Michigan alone. In Pennsylvania as well, in Georgia. In Arizona is a whole other story. We won't even get into Arizona. Arizona was a hot mess. That's going to have to get fixed.
So
All this needs to get fixed, obviously.
the next part in the town hall meeting, they talk about January 6th, and the next video that me and Dev are going to be showing you guys is that Caitlin Collins, the host for CNN, before I put a video, I'm going to explain to you guys what happened. She tries to say, oh, whenever it started getting bad, why didn't you do something about it? Why'd you wait 3 hours? Well, I'm not going to give away what President Trump does, but watch what he does here.
Says you never gave that order. But back to what happened on that day.
He
You said
did
you
not
weren't.
say that.
He has testified that, Mr.
He did
President.
not say that.
But you said you weren't very involved that day. You did tell your supporters to come to Washington. You tweeted about it, about
Sure,
that
of
speech
course.
that happened on the rally.
Am I allowed to say that?
When they went to the Capitol and they were breaking into the Capitol, smashing windows, injuring police officers, why did it take you 3 hours to tell them to go home?
I don't believe it did. Oh, let me pull it out. I have to pull it out. So if you look at on January 5th, the day before, I said, please support our Capitol Police and law enforcement. They are truly on the side of our country. Stay peaceful. Stay peaceful. This was the day before, and this was in the form of Twitter. Now I use Truth Social. I think it's far superior. Okay. I hope everybody's on Truth. If you look January 6th, this is before 2:30. I am asking for everyone at the U.S. Capitol to remain peaceful. This is right after, as it was happening. But what happened is they took it down. I don't know why. I think they took it down because it was so good. They didn't like it being up there. I am asking, and we didn't know until I got it back, because now I have 90 million people waiting for me to go back, but I'm on Truth and I'm staying on Truth. Listen, I am asking for everyone at the U.S. Capitol to remain peaceful. No violation. We want no violation. We want no violence. Remember, we are the party of law and order. Respect the law and our great men and women in blue. Thank you. That was at 2:30. That was very early.
Mr. President, I looked at the same timeline that you did.
No,
Once
no,
it was
but you
clear,
didn't report that. You know why? Because it was
we did
taken
report it.
down.
I was
It
reporting
was
that
taken
day.
down and it wasn't.
But when
put
it was
back up.
clear to you that they were not being peaceful, you saw.
I mean, that is just. Whenever I was watching this live and that happened, I just started bursting out laughing. I mean, I couldn't believe it.
I just love how he pulled out the evidence, paper
Right.
evidence. The
Right.
most indisputable evidence is that he pulled out the fact and the pictures of tweets, and it still wasn't enough. It still wants to argue, well, I saw the timeline. Well, trust me, you did, because I'm holding picture evidence.
And something that caught my attention whenever I was listening to that was, I didn't even know this, but it makes sense. Twitter being Twitter, President Trump said they took it down. They took the tweet down. Like he made the tweet whenever stuff was really wild up and like saying like he made a tweet, but as he's shown and as he said right there, but Twitter took it down and for it being what too good. I mean that just should show how one-sided and how crazy like the media and stuff is, like what side they're really picking. It should really just speak volume.
Yeah. It's just such a tricky thing when we talk about just the whole thing, you know?
Right. Right. And so the next segment. Oh, and by the way, that segment was at 10:25 for people who are wondering. The next voters question was, and I heard a lot of controversy about this next topic. I saw this all over Twitter the next day, and people that didn't know, President Trump said that if he was president again, he would pardon the J6 rioters. And so the next segment that me and Dev are going to play is a video on President Trump's response, and this starts at 17, 17 flat. Wow.
This is good timing.
Illegal votes were cast in Wisconsin. And if you look in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, they had so many illegal votes, they didn't even know what to do with them. You're absolutely wrong.
Mr. President, there weren't any fraudulent votes in Wisconsin. I do want to get to the audience, so we have questions for you from the audience. Wayne Byer is a retired attorney from North Conway. He has previously served in Republican administrations. He volunteered for the Republican Party in the 2022 midterms. He voted for you in 2020. What's your question for the president, Wayne?
Thank you for coming, Mr. President.
Thank you, Wayne.
My question to you is, will you pardon the January 6 rioters who were convicted of federal offenses?
To pardon many of them. I can't say for every single one because a couple of them probably they got out of control. But, you know, when you look at Antifa, what they've done to Portland, and if you look at Antifa, look at what they've done to Minneapolis and so many other places. Look at what they did to Seattle and BLM. Many people were killed. These people, I'm not trying to justify anything, but you have two standards of justice in this country, and what they've done, and I love that question, because what they've done to so many people is nothing. And then what they've done to these people, they've persecuted these people. And yeah, my answer is I am most likely, if I get in, I will most likely, I would say it will be a large portion of them. You know, they did and it'll be very early on. And they're living in hell right now.
So when it comes
they're
to
living
pardons,
in hell. And they're policemen, and they're firemen, and they're soldiers, and they're carpenters and electricians, and they're great people. Many of them are just great people.
Mr. President, one of the people who was convicted was a former policeman, but he was convicted of attacking a police officer, I should note. But when you said you are considering pardoning a large portion of those charged with crimes on January 6th, does that include the 4 Proud Boys members who were charged and convicted of seditious conspiracy?
I don't know. I'd have to look at their case, but I will say in Washington, D.C., you cannot get a fair trial. You cannot. Just like in New York City, you can't get a fair trial.
Yeah, so what's your thoughts on that segment, Devin?
Well, I think that this is of the side topics to come out of the election and the January 6th riots. I think that this is probably the most controversial question that they could ask. And I think that of all the town hall meeting questions they asked, I think this was, next to, you know, the Roe v. Wade thing, the most controversial possibly. Because if it was flipped and this was, you know, Biden was the incumbent and had all this happen and he was talking about re-election and pardoning people, we wouldn't like that.
Right.
You know what I mean? And the problem I have with it is should those people be pardoned? Yes. But I can see the double standard here. We always talk about double standards. As the Republican Party, as conservatives, as libertarians, as people who find ourselves to have to take the moral high ground. We are, all of us honestly, we're taking the moral high ground. We should have held ourselves to a better standard than this. And we've talked about this before. You get what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
Is to pardon them is to deny any wrongdoing in a way.
Sure. And the thing that stood out to me in that segment was whenever Trump says you cannot get a fair trial in Washington or New York, and I think that should be really like that was eye-opening to me because like obviously that says like in Democrat-ran cities it is very one-sided. Like they don't care how they don't care about the other side. He said in another segment they will not even look at it. And the next topic, which I don't know, I don't think I want to show the video of the E.G. Carroll whole incident. It's kind of long, but I could give time segments for it, which would start at 1947 to 2315. That's really good. Trump talks about the whole incident's about this bullshit case that's up against him about him sexually harassing this lady. It's actually his response is quite interesting. And
Let me do you mean to synopsis it a little bit here?
Yeah, if you can.
Is, you know, basically we talk about this woman came out and said that Trump sexually assaulted her. That they met in a department store in New York City, and that they immediately hit it off, and she was attracted to him, and he was attracted to her, and They went into a dressing room, and as he called it in the town hall meeting, which was completely hilarious to me, is hanky panky. Which I feel like on this podcast from now on, if we refer to this, we're going to call it hanky panky. But anyways, just says that he's never met her. He has a picture with her from a guy named Joe Johnson, who was a newscaster, I believe, in New York City. So he has one picture with her, but he, doesn't remember. He darn sure says he doesn't remember meeting her at a department store, and that he would remember if he did this. And then he goes and talks about how her morals are so. I'm going to go ahead and say sadly terrible that her husband is an African American man, and she called her husband an ape publicly. We talk about, like I said, just there was no real credibility to these accusations. We watched the witch hunts for the first and second impeachments, and all we've watched is the blind chasing the blind when it comes to all these things that they've tried to charge Trump with.
Right.
And this is just another one of those things to make it so that those undecided people don't want to vote for him.
It's not even that. And Trump says, if you guys do go back and watch this video, Trump says the whole reason of this whole sexual assault case, which is the biggest reason of them all, is for election interference. That is the main reason for it all, is election interference at its finest. I mean, it's very interesting, his response to the whole incident, and I encourage people to go watch this, again, starting at 1947. But the topic after the E.G. Carroll is a voter had a question about the economy, talking about what would he do if elected back in office. And so this clip starts at 24:43.
She was a New Hampshire delegate for you in 2020. What's your question?
Hi, thank you so much for coming to New Hampshire to
Thank you.
answer our questions. My question is regarding the economy. Over the past 2 years, we have seen the prices for everything skyrocket, from food to gas to utilities and insurance costs. Many people's bills are up several $100s a month, including mine. If elected president again, what is the first thing you would do to help bring down the cost, make things more affordable?
Drill, baby, drill. So we were energy independent. We were soon going to be energy dominant. And nobody had ever done what I did. We got oil down to $1.87. Actually, it fell lower than that in some cases. We had to save the oil companies. The price was getting so. We were doing incredibly. We had the greatest economy in the history of our country, probably the greatest economy in the history of the world. We were energy independent, soon to be energy dominant. We were going to be bigger than Russia and Saudi Arabia put together ×2. We have more liquid gold under our feet than any other nation. Any other nation. And these stupid fools ended it. And energy went from $1.87 and even lower for gasoline, for a car. They went from $1.87 to $5, $6, $7, $8, and even $9. And your electricity bills went through the roof, your heating bills went through the roof. And that's what started inflation. And it hasn't stopped because people are paying now for bacon.
I mean, yeah, it's, how can you not realize what he's saying right there, like saying how gas was so cheap to what gas is now? Like, even independent voters, you could be like, oh yeah, that was true. 2 years ago, things were a lot cheaper than they are now.
To me, this cutout we just had right there, this is the most blunt, honest, and really to me the least negotiable part of it. There's not a single person that comes with a valid argument to me that our economy is a fifth as strong as it was when Trump was president. Home interest rates are up, 4 to 5%, if not 6%. Gas is up, $3 and $4 in places like he just said. Mm-hmm. We're not energy independent, right. And just all these things. And to me, this was my favorite question that was probably asked in this town hall meeting, was about the economy, because gun rights, those affect people who own guns, and just all these things. This is something that affects every single citizen, legal or illegal, in the United States. So to me, this was the most pivotal part. And to me, I feel like this decision to speak out about what we spoke about is going to be a really positive thing for Trump.
And something I love that he said was his first words out of his mouth from after
Drill,
all
baby,
this stuff.
drill.
Yes. And I mean, yes, I could see obviously from the left you'll hear no, you don't want that. But you heard him how much liquid gold we have underneath our feet. If it's sitting there and we have advantage to sell it to other countries and make money off it to make our country better, you kind of think that maybe you should do that. I don't know. I mean, I'm for it. I see there are people that are against it. So,
Well, the people that
that
are against it don't understand how the world functions.
hmm,
What they don't understand is if we don't get the oil from the United States, if we don't profit off of our own natural resources,
we're buying it from
then we're
somewhere else.
buying it from Iran, we're buying it from Saudi Arabia, Oman, Yemen, United
Russia.
Arab Emirates, Russia, China, all India, all these places. And then they're like, well, we talk about humanity rights. Psh, you think it's bad here? See how people get treated over in those countries. And we're funding these people's governments.
By
What
buying
better
oil.
place to profit off of our own resources than money to go back into our own economy, into our own people's pockets, and then start selling it to other countries, getting their money to stimulate our economy? That's kindergarten math. We shouldn't have to explain this, but people are so stupid. The best money you can get and spend is other people's money, right?
Absolutely.
It's just common sense. It's again non-negotiable. You know what I
Right.
mean?
And for people that are wondering, that segment starts at 23:43. And so the next question up in the town hall meeting is the voter asked about how he's gonna try to get women voters with the Roe v. Wade situation. Um, Again, me and Devin aren't gonna jump too deep into this because that can open up a whole can of worms. But this is
Absolutely.
this is a little part of what President Trump did say.
Concerned about the Dobbs decision and how states may change their laws?
It's such a great question, and it was such a great victory, and people are starting to understand it now. You know that they wanted to bring it back to the states, but that was probably the least important part of that victory. Getting rid of Roe v. Wade was an incredible thing for pro-life because it gave pro-life something to negotiate with. Pro-life had absolutely nothing being stuck in Roe v. Wade to negotiate with. And now what's happening, and I see it all over, deals are being made, deals are going to be made. And look, everybody that was president wanted to get rid and tried to get rid of Roe v. Wade.
You mean
for 50 years. Republicans. This has been going on, actually a couple of Democrats too, but for 50 years, this has been going on. I was able to do it, and I was very honored to do it. But by doing it, things are happening that are very, very positive. And I happen to believe in the exceptions, the life of the mother, rape, incest, like Ronald Reagan believed in the exceptions. But I happen to believe that. I think it's frankly important to do that, but a lot of people are, against that. A relatively small number. But the way I look, I think it's very important to say this. I consider the other side to be radical because the other side, under Roe v. Wade and other things, the other side, they're radical because they will. Remember the debate with Hillary Clinton? They said, rip the baby out of the womb at the end of the 9th month. They will kill the baby in the 9th month. If you look at that crazy governor of Virginia from the former governor, where he said, no, the baby will be born, and then we'll decide essentially whether or not to execute
But
the
Mr.
baby.
President, can we talk about what you would do if
No,
you
but these are the radical people.
reelected?
It's not the pro-life people that are radical.
But if you are
It's
reelected
these
and you're
people.
back in the Oval Office and
Um, so that is the beginning. I just wanted to give the audience just kind of like a glimpse of what he was saying about the Roe v. Wade and women's rights, or women voters. I'm sorry, women voters, and how he plans on to gaining them. That starts at 34:24. That's a pretty long segment. Me and Devin again just
Super long.
didn't really feel like diving too deep into that because I mean that can really just talk. I mean it's long and I don't know. It's not really my.
If you go
It wasn't.
back and
It
watch this,
wasn't look. It's not what I'm looking for in this town hall meeting, as in for what's important.
absolutely. I mean, we've talked
Um,
about it at great lengths, but if you guys go back and you guys watch just this segment, if you guys say I want to watch this because this is what I want to hear about Trump's opinion on, you're going to get, to me, quite possibly, although he kind of gives an ambiguous answer to at the end of all this, and numerous times, Caitlin goes at him hard about it. She says in there numerous times, we want to know if you would sign a federal ban on abortion, like probably 10 times. And he says, I would negotiate. I would negotiate. So if you're going to go back and you're going to watch this to see how Trump feels about it, you're going to get your questions answered, but you're not going to get the answer that the left wants, if that makes any sense to you at all.
Mm-hmm.
Because Trump is a businessman. That's why we love him. He's a businessman. He uses everything he can to negotiate to get what's best for the American people. Does not deal in absolutes. You know what I mean? Right. And to me, it's a great bargaining chip. And as a president, if we can find a point to where every American can be content with it at this point, it's a great way for him to go down in history as a president who did a lot of great things, even in his second term.
Yeah.
So that's what I have from that little segment there. I suggest if you're interested, go back and watch it. It's just it's such a controversial topic still a year later. I made our episode a year ago roughly about the Roe v. Wade thing, and it's still such a hot button topic, and it still has so many opinions, and those opinions have evolutionized in the last year. So
again, that segment you could find at 3424. The next one they talk about is Title 42, and in my opinion, Devin, this is whenever the town hall meeting, this is the stuff I started wanting to hear, was this question and then questions from here on out, and this is when things start getting good, I think, is once I start diving into the current situations that we're dealing with as in day to day. And so again, Title 42 segment starts at 4016.
Tonight. Good evening, Mr. President. Title 42 is expected to expire tomorrow. Our southern border and now our northern border are experiencing record migration. We learned on May 2nd that the Biden administration plans on deploying 1,500 troops to the southern border. Do you agree with deploying troops to the border, and how will a Trump administration slow down the rate of migrants coming across all our borders?
Sure. A very fair question, especially since tomorrow is going to be a day of infamy. You're going to have tens of thousands of people pouring into our country. Even the judge, the judge overruled them when they wanted to terminate it early. And he said, that you better extend this thing. The judge in Texas said, I hope you extend this, but this is my policy that they're letting terminate because they lost in court. They wanted to go earlier. You're going to have millions of people pouring into our country right now at a level that nobody's ever seen before. These people are sick. Anybody that wants this to happen to our country, they're destroying our country, and this should not be allowed to happen. How they're not going to do a version of Title 42 or my Title 42, which was tough. If people are sick and have infectious diseases and lots of other problems, we don't want them being into our country. We have enough problems right now. We have problems like we've never had in the history of our country.
But Mr. President,
our country is being destroyed.
The reason it's ending is because the health policy, the COVID era pandemic emergency is coming to an end. That's what Title 42 was. You put it in place because of COVID.
True, but
when it comes to big questions about what your immigration policy would look like if you are reelected, some of your Republican rivals have criticized you for not fulfilling the promises that you made on the campaign trail, like finishing the border wall. So how did voters know that you would get those done if you're reelected?
I did finish the wall. I built a wall. I built hundreds of miles of wall, and I finished it. And then I said, we have to build some more because there are areas like water going through a dam. There are some areas where a lot of people are coming. You close up one and they come into another. And we started another 100 miles of wall. In fact, I said to my people, if we start this and don't finish it, and then we had a rigged election, I'm sorry to say it.
The election was not rigged, Mr. President. You can't keep saying that all night long.
And so then they took over and they decided not to finish it. It would have taken them 3 weeks. I built hundreds of miles of wall. If we didn't have it, it would be hard to believe it could be any worse. They're just letting people flow into our country. Look, a country has to have borders. There's never been anything like is happening to our country right now.
You built about 52 miles of new wall when you were in office, Mr. President. It wasn't the complete wall. One other thing that with
no, but I have to respond to that.
With your immigration, it was only about 52 miles of new wall.
This is what she does. I built hundreds of miles. Some of the wall was up there, and it would be laying on the ground, rusted, rotten steel, rusted, rotten wood, a little. And what the radical left, crazy Democrats did, If there's a piece of wood laying down, they consider that a wall. I built 30-foot walls that go down 7 feet into the ground. If there was a little piece of wood sitting in the ground, they said, oh, he's not building a wall. We already had a wall. Because this is the game. They're a party of disinformation.
It's not a game, Mr. President. It's about 52 miles of new wall. One other immigration policy you have
I built
when you
new
were in
wall.
office.
I built new wall.
52 miles
for
according
hundreds of
to
miles.
CBP, Mr.
What I did is I
President.
replaced other wall that was laying down, that was up and rotting in the ground for 30 years. Some of it.
Yeah. What do you guys say about
This
that,
is
David?
really where he gets under her skin. This is another. I think that just before this immigration question was asked is where this town hall, or if you want to call it interview, really goes south. She really starts getting fed up with him, and he really starts getting fed up with her.
Yeah.
And they start
Well,
interrupting each other, and
It's not even interrupting each other. It was straight from the beginning. I mean, if you guys watch this video fully, Caitlin Collins is very rude to him from the get, and she'll ask him a question, and in the middle of his question, she'll try to interrupt him, as in try to ask a different question, or say, "Oh, the election, you can't say that," or whatever. I mean, I think in my perspective, I think President Trump was very, very more patient than how he normally is. I mean, if you're asking for patience out of President Trump, you're gonna see it in this video, because I mean, in the past, I mean, Trump is known to lash out. I mean, we know that. In this video, he shows patience, and I don't know. In my opinion, Caitlin Collins was very rude, very, very rude in this video.
that's literally what I said. We paused watching this, and I'm like, she's extremely rude. There's has to be some kind of protocol for when you're doing something like this. When you're
Right.
obviously in disagreement with someone who's being the one that's the center of this interview in this town hall. And I don't
Right.
feel like she gave him, in some aspects, I think she did give him a fair amount of respect. But in more areas than not, I feel like it was completely disrespectful.
And
Trump can come on. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I don't want the viewers or listeners to forget. CNN, I'm telling you, CNN had President Trump come on for this town hall meeting thinking that they were going to have him slip up or have him make a mistake. They were thinking that the whole time. So I'm telling you, him being patient, this made them kind of explode even more because they were wanting him to lash out, I think that was maybe why Caitlin Collins was being the way she was. They were wanting him to like lash out or say something wrong.
I implore all of the listeners and viewers to take some time. If you're listening to us in the car, like I drive a truck full, and I have all the time in the world to listen to things. I get people don't have that luxury, but to listen to this, we'll attach the video that we watched from Rumble, and if you don't have Rumble account, you can still watch it and just watch it. It's an hour, 1 minute and 48 seconds or something. Almost, it's basically an hour and 2 minutes.
With no commercials.
And yeah, with no commercials, which is the version we have, because no one wants to watch commercials. We're past the days of watching commercials, obviously, but you get a lot. I mean, we're showing you the parts that we find important, but the things that we find important and relevant might not be what you guys find important and relevant. So I implore you to go ahead and watch it. If you want to get the gist of what the problem is right now, the issues that Trump are facing, in general our nation are facing, to go take the time and listen to this hour and 2 minutes. You can watch it. You don't need to watch the video. Really, just the audio, I feel, is the important part. I mean, if you enjoy watching Trump's funny reactions to dumb things being said, then watch the video, which me and you, Alec, both love watching his funny reactions to dumb things being said. It's one of the best parts of Trump, if you ask me. But
he's just not like a normal politician. I mean, you just don't.
And that's why everyone loves it.
Exactly. Again, that was Title 42. That segment starts at 40:16. The next segment is something that I really enjoyed. Devin mentioned earlier that one of his favorite segments was the economy, which I think is important, but in my perspective, I like current events as well mixed in. And what they talk about is the Russia-Ukrainian war. And I don't want to give away too much. I want to show you guys what the segment's about, but this was something I was very intrigued by.
What's your question for the president, Caitlin?
Hello, President Trump.
Hi.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
The current administration has made it clear that we should continue to provide military equipment to Ukraine. Do you support this decision, and how would you deal with the increasing threat posed by Vladimir Putin?
First of all, thank you very much. It's really nice. And it's an important question, so important, because we're giving away so much equipment. We don't have ammunition for ourselves right now. We don't have ammunition for ourselves. We're giving away so much. But here's the thing. I have to say it to start off. No longer matters. If I were president, this would have never happened. And even the Democrats admit that. Putin knew it would have never happened. And his pipeline would have never happened. A lot of things would have never happened. But this
Which
would never
Democrats
happen.
say that,
And
Mr.
all those
President?
dead people, both Russian and Ukrainian, they wouldn't be dead today. And all those cities that are blown up and disintegrated right to the ground, that wouldn't have happened. Okay. Now, here's the problem. We've given so far $171 billion. They've given, meaning European Union, which is approximately the same size altogether as our economy. They've given about 20. So we're at 170, let's say, and they're at 20. You don't have to know too much about history to realize, or geography, to realize that they're a little bit more affected than we are, okay? So they've got to put up a lot more money because they're taking advantage of us like every other country did. That's why I ended NAFTA and replaced it with the USMCA, Mexico,
But on
Canada.
this issue, Mr. President, I should know, I don't know any Democrats who have said they don't believe Putin would have been invaded if you were president. But her question is, would you continue to give Ukraine money and weapons if you're elected? What's the answer?
I have a very good relationship with President Zelensky because, as you know, he backed me up with the phony impeachment hoax number one when he said the president didn't do anything wrong. So I happen to like. So I happen to like. Yeah, that's right. And I was totally exonerated, by the way. Just a waste of time and money.
You were impeached over that. You were impeached over that. But let's stay on topic here, Mr. President, because the question is, would you give Ukraine weapons
I was
and funding?
impeached by a crazy woman named Nancy Pelosi.
But the question here is, would you give Ukraine weapons and funding if you were
I
elected?
would sit down. Let me just put it a nicer way. If I'm president, I will have that war settled in one day, 24 hours.
How would you settle that war in one day?
Because I'll meet with Putin, I'll meet with Zelensky. They both have weaknesses and they both have strengths. And within 24 hours, that war will be settled. It'll be over. It'll be absolutely
Do you
over.
want Ukraine to win this war?
I don't think in terms of winning and losing. I think in terms of getting it settled so we stop killing all these people and breaking down this country. Now,
can I just follow up on that? You
But
said
one
you
of the
don't
things
think in
you have
terms
to
of
do is
winning
you
and
have to get
losing.
you have
Mr.
to get
President, can I
Europe.
just follow up on that because that's a really important
Excuse me,
statement
let me
that you
just
just
follow
made
up.
there. Can you say if you want Ukraine or Russia to win this war?
I want everybody to stop dying. They're dying. Russians and Ukrainians. I want them to stop dying. And I'll have that done. I'll have that done in 24 hours. I'll have it done. You need the power of the presidency to do it.
But you won't say that you want Ukraine to win. You
know what I'll say? I'll say this. I want Europe to put up more money because they're in for 20 billion. We're in for 170, and
But
they
that's not
should
an
be.
answer about who
And
should
they
win
should
the war.
equalize. They have plenty of money. They should equalize. I got with NATO.
But I'm
When I
asking you
sat down,
about
I got
Ukraine
them
right
to
now,
put up
Mr.
hundreds
President.
of billions of dollars that they weren't paying under Obama and Bush and all of these other presidents. That's why they're able to help them fight the war because of the money I got. But I
let's
want
talk about
Europe.
what's happening in
Excuse
Ukraine,
me.
Mr.
I want
President.
Europe to put up more money because they're laughing at us. They think we're a bunch of jerks. We're spending $170 billion for faraway land, and they're right next door to that land, and they're in for 20. I don't think so.
When it comes to what's happening there, when you were in office, you said that you respected President Putin. Do
Yeah, I
you
do.
still respect him today?
He made a choice.
Yeah, I mean, that's just that to me, I love that because he's completely right. We have given them how much money? He said $170 billion. And
Around
then
171.
the neighborhood countries that are actually by Ukraine, the European Union, who is our alliance, they've given 20. I mean, as an American, Democrat, Republican, whatever you are, that should piss you off. Like, why are we giving them more? Now, maybe some will say, oh, well, we have more money. No. You're not just hear what he said. You put all those countries together, and they could buy just as much as us. Like, they are just as powerful as us. So, again, why are they not giving us much? That is something I loved that he said.
I think that this segment, if you talk about the question, you just ask the question, asked Trump about Ukraine. I didn't think that this was going to be this hot fire of a topic. But I mean, he really, really got at Caitlyn about this because she asked a definitive. Again, Trump does not deal in absolutes. I've talked about this previous in this episode. He doesn't care if Russia wants to take care of Ukraine. He just wants things to get back to the way they should be. People not dying, economies moving, generating the global economy. That's a businessman at head. Not everyone can be like Biden. The whole Biden family and all the Democrats and even the rhinos to a degree always have alternative motive. They like to play this game like chess. Trump doesn't care. He just wants people to succeed. He wants the world to be the best it can be and just let it flourish. Because at the end of the day, Ukraine and Russia, this war being over, benefits everyone, even if people don't want to realize it.
Right. And something that I want to point out during that segment was Caitlin Collins was trying to clickbait him by saying, "Oh, you want Ukraine to win." Oh, Trump, by the way, that answer he said, "I want people to stop dying like altogether." That's the best answer you could give. I don't know how you could not support that. And then we didn't put this in the video, but later on she'll ask him, "Do you think he's a war criminal?" That's also a great question. But Trump's response was, "Well, I don't think we should say that because if we say that and he thinks that we are he's going to be fighting harder he's going to be fighting harder if we call him a war criminal," which is also another great response by President Trump. CNN is trying to clickbait him and is saying things that sound bad. That was their purpose, and again, this backfired so bad on CNN. So bad.
Well, to me, the right where we cut off is she says, you've said vocally before that you respect Putin, and he says, yes. There's no denying that Putin is a smart man. As much as we hate the things the man does and how he reacts to things, there's no denying that he is an intellectual person. Just like he talks later on there about the Chinese president. You don't get to rule 1.5 billion and some change people without being highly intellectual, highly dependable, and just having the mindset to lead a country.
Right.
And people always like to call the Russian collusion thing, which we've talked about this, it's like being a dead horse at this point. But it was like, well, Putin is Trump's best friend. Well, if you watch that clip right there, if Putin was Trump's best friend, that'd have been a whole different segment we'd be talking about right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, it goes back to the whole evidence thing.
Right. Again, the Russia-Ukraine topic, and there's more to follow than what me and Devin showed you. That starts at 45:20. The next one that they talked about was the Mar-a-Lago FBI raid. And before I show this, I think it's really important for people that are listening and watching to really listen to what President Trump says right here. I mean, this is very, very important. And this is at the point where, to me, whenever I was watching this is very important where you could just tell the media is so fake because Trump says things that are very, down to the book. And he says, other people took things. And Caitlin Collins is just trying to interrupt us saying, no, 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 no. Like she's going crazy. And you guys are about to see that right here.
Others at the top, but one of those is the special counsel's investigation into classified documents that were found at Mar-a-Lago. Why did you take those documents with you when you left the White House?
I had every right to under the Presidential Records Act. You have the Presidential Records Act. I was there and I took what I took and it gets declassified. Biden, on the other hand, he has 1,850 boxes. He had boxes sent to Chinatown, where they don't speak even English in that Chinatown we're talking about.
I got to stop you right there.
Nobody talks about him. They talk about us. Just so you understand, I had every right to do it. I didn't make a secret of it. The boxes were stationed outside of the White House. People were taking pictures of the GSA and the various people.
I got to stop you right there, though, because the Presidential Records Act, which is not well known to a lot of people, I read it. It does not say that you can take documents with you. It says actually that they are the property of the federal government.
It says you talk, you negotiate, you make a deal. It's not criminal, by the way. The Presidential Records Act is not criminal. And just so you know.
It does not say you can negotiate to take the documents with you.
Can I tell you? Just so you understand, the Presidential Records Act is not criminal. I took the documents. I'm allowed to. You know who else took them? Obama took them. Nixon took them. Reagan took them. Oh, he didn't?
The difference here that I'd like to know.
Reagan
National
took them.
Archives says that President Obama
Even
did
Jimmy
not
Carter,
take
even Mike
documents.
Pence had some documents, and he's a
You
very
referenced
honorable
Pence,
guy.
you referenced
But you know who
Biden.
took them more than anybody is Joe Biden. He has 1,800 boxes, and
not
nobody
accurate,
even
Mr.
knows where
President,
they
and you
are.
know that.
1,800, and nobody talks about him.
Mr. President,
And they
that's not accurate.
put a rough guy on us, and in the
I think it's
meantime, they have
important, Mr.
nobody.
President, to actually set the record straight here. They took documents, including President or Vice President Pence. When they realized they had documents, they turned them back over. The difference is that you waited to turn yours over, and it was a year and a half effort that included a subpoena with those documents. One question about what happened when you had
raid
those
on
documents.
my house. That's what it included.
But
They
you had
didn't raid.
you'd gotten a
They
subpoena
didn't raid
and they had not
Biden's
been
house.
turned over yet.
They didn't raid Biden's house. You know what happened? They put him in the house. That's the one with the Corvette where the documents were laying all over the floor. That was fine. And you know who happens to be at Mar-a-Lago? Secret Service, and they're phenomenal. I have Secret Service. He didn't have Secret Service. The other thing, the vice president cannot declassify. He didn't have the right to declassify. He has documents from when he was a senator. And even Democrat senators say, I can't believe it. No, I went by the Presidential Records Act.
That's not
and
what
we
the
were
Presidential
negotiating
Records
with
Act
NARA.
says. That's not what it says,
And
Mr.
NARA has
President.
red flagged a thing called the Constitution of the United States and the Bill of Rights because they consider them
Mr.
dangerous
President, that's
documents.
not what it
Those
says,
are
and
the
I
people
should
we're
note.
dealing
And
with.
I should note that there is a special counsel investigating your document situation, also President Biden's document situation. When it comes to your documents, did you ever show those classified documents to anyone?
Not really. I would have the right to. By the way, they were
do you mean, not
declassified after.
really?
Not that I can think of. Let me just tell you, I have the absolute right to do whatever I want with them. I have the right. I was negotiating with NARA. You know what NARA?
Archives.
Extremely
But you don't
left
negotiate
group
with
of
them.
people. Extremely left. And I was negotiating with
They're
them.
not
All of a
left,
sudden,
they're
they
bipartisan.
raided my house. They didn't raid the house of Joe Biden. They didn't raid Obama.
But Joe Biden didn't ignore a subpoena to get those documents back like
Joe
you
Biden
did. And so
took
that's the question.
1,850 boxes.
But that's the question that investigators have, I think, is why you held on to those documents when you knew the federal government was seeking them and then had given you a subpoena to return
Are
them.
you ready? Are you ready? Can I talk?
Yeah, what's
You
the
mind?
answer?
Do you mind?
I would like you to answer the question.
Okay, it's very simple to answer.
That's why I asked it.
It's very simple to. You're a nasty person, I'll tell you.
Can you answer why you
simple.
held on to the documents?
I was negotiating, and we were talking to NARA, that's Washington, to bring whatever they want. They can have whatever they want. When we left Washington, we had the boxes lined up on the sidewalk outside for everybody. People are taking pictures of them. Everybody knew we were taking those boxes. And the GSA, the government service, the GSA was the one taking them. They brought them down to Mar-a-Lago. We were negotiating with NARA. All of a sudden, they raid our house. When Biden has his documents, he won't give back the 1,850 boxes. And you're going to find some real gems in there.
But it was
So
Biden
you
who
can't have
alerted
all
them that
these
he had
different
the
sets of-
documents.
all
The
these
National
different
Archives
sets of-
reached out to you to get your documents back. Why did you not turn them over when you got a subpoena
Because we were
asking for you to turn
negotiating
them
with
over?
them. We were negotiating with them as per the Presidential Records Act. We were negotiating with NARA.
That's not what the
Very
Presidential
nice
Records
people,
Act says. I've
but they
seen
got to
it.
love our Constitution a little bit more, and they shouldn't red flag it, by the way. Very nice people. We were negotiating with NARA, and that's what the Presidential Records Act says, because Richard Nixon, surprisingly, had problems, and he had a lot of problems dealing with NARA, and they ended up passing
that's why
legislation
they
called the
created the
Presidential
PRA.
Records Act just for this kind of a thing. We were
My
dealing
last
with them.
question
We were
on this
talking. Excuse me. Wait a minute.
subject, Mr.
Wait.
President.
We were talking to them. We would have done it, but all of a sudden they raided the house. Now, why hasn't the FBI raided Biden?
But I just explained to you
Why?
why.
No.
It's because they alerted the
1,850
government that they
okay.
had those documents and had them come and get the
Why
documents
did
from his
Biden-
house.
no, they
My
didn't
question
take
for you, though, when it comes to documents, do you still have any classified documents in your possession?
Are you ready?
Do you?
No, I don't have anything. I have no classified documents. And by the way, they become automatically declassified when I took them. But
No, you have
why?
to declassify
Let me
them.
ask you a question. Why is it that Biden had 9 boxes in Chinatown? and he gets a lot of money from China. Why is that? And
There
why,
is no
why
evidence
aren't
of that,
people?
Mr. President. No, you cannot
why
say
aren't
that. There
people
is no
bringing that
evidence
up?
of that, Mr.
And why
President.
don't they put this
What
guy
you're
Jack
referring
Smith
to
and his
is an
group of
office that he had.
thugs?
Mr.
Why
President,
don't they put him in charge of that?
I need to stop you right there because there's no evidence of what you just said there. What you're referring to there is an office that he had
No,
after
that's
leaving
at the University
vice
of Pennsylvania.
presidency.
Wrong.
He had a temporary office. But I want to ask about another investigation
You're so
that you're
wrong.
facing.
You don't know the subject.
I do know the subject.
He had
and I
one
do
at
know the
University
facts,
of
Mr.
Pennsylvania,
President.
but he also had
I want to
9
move on to
boxes
another
in
investigation that
Chinatown.
you're facing, which is the one
She
that's
doesn't
happening
understand
in
it.
Georgia, where they are investigating there your efforts to over.
Oh my god.
Like I
Dude,
said, that's where it got rough.
dude, like, first off, I want to talk more about the end of the video of that segment that we just showed. Again, this starts at 51:30, the whole document situation. But I want to talk about the end because Caitlyn, dude, that's when she really got roasted. I mean, Trump was like, "You don't even know what you're talking about," and that just shows that like she tried showing up to a gun fight with a knife. Like she really didn't know what she was talking about, and that just showed. And the fact that I mean, like as he was like talking throughout that video segment, I mean, it happens throughout the whole interview. But she was trying to interrupt him, trying to change. Like, do you notice she's trying to change the subject in the middle of him talking about his answer? She'll ask him, he'll start explaining, going in depth of his explanation, and then she'll try to change the subject.
You know, that's probably the best thing that she could have done for really the Democrat Party and CNN for this town hall interview, because they know that what they're doing is wrong. They know what they're doing is immoral, and the best thing that they told her to do was if he starts getting into evidence and facts, you need to tell him he's wrong without backing up any evidence to prove that he's wrong and change the subject. The downfall of the liberal and the Democratic Party is facts. And it sounds like I joke a lot when I say that, but it's a factual statement. They don't accept real stats. They accept their false truths as the real truths. And that's what we just saw when we talk about Caitlin Collins, the host of this.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so again, that starts at 51:30, and then that comes down to the last segment of this whole town hall, and that leads us with government interference. And so let's get that up and going.
Jordan, what is your question for President Trump tonight?
Thank you, Mr. Trump.
Thank you very much.
I'm 26. I'm a veteran. I help manage a private aviation company.
You want a job?
I'd love one. Yeah.
I'm looking for somebody very good.
I'm not for mandates or government interference in private business, but I've
Right.
seen Republicans going after us like DeSantis after Disney.
Right.
What would you do as president to protect us from government interference?
Well, I'm the one that really wants to protect you. All of these fake investigations of me are about election interference. They think because I'm leading Biden by 11 points, 7 points, 9 points, I'm leading DeSanctimonious by a lot, by 40 points or 45 points. I think he ought to just relax and take it easy and think about the future, because right now his future is not looking so good. I will tell you this. We are really putting it to Biden, but he's putting it to himself because the economy stinks, inflation is horrible, and the border is a disaster. And by the way he got out of Afghanistan was the single most embarrassing moment in the history of our country.
Mr. President, I have one more question for you here tonight, and I think while we're in front of the voters here in New Hampshire, this is a fundamental question for you. You are running in the 2024 race. If you are the Republican nominee and you are in that 2024 race, will you commit tonight to accepting the results of the 2024 election?
Yeah, if I think it's an honest election, absolutely, I would.
Will you commit to accepting the results of the election regardless of the outcome?
You want me to answer it again? If I think it's an honest election, I'd be honored to. And right now, we are so far ahead of both Democrat and Republican. And you know what? If I don't win, this country is going to be in big trouble. It's so sad to see what's happening.
But no commitment there on the accepting the results regardless of the outcome.
If it's an honest election, correct. I will.
Okay, so not committing to accepting the 2024 election results or acknowledging what happened in 2020.
Go ahead.
President Trump, I want to thank you for coming here tonight. This is an important conversation with voters.
I mean,
that's where everything really culminated. That's where you could tell they both were super tired of each other, and she just kept digging. She just always has to dig in this whole interview process.
something I want our viewers to really understand, and I really do encourage, like Devin said, to watch this whole video because during the video, you hear the crowd cheering on President Trump and almost laughing at what Caitlin Collins was saying. I mean, she was asking questions, one that people, one, probably didn't care about as much, and two, trying to interrupt them and say things like, as in the election was stolen, or the election, you can't say election wasn't stolen, Mr. President. You can't say that. And then right there at the end, I mean, you saw people just kind of laughed at what she was trying to say.
You know, to me, his answer there is a common answer. You could ask any president in the history of time. Hey, if the last election was rigged, would you accept the next election results?
Do you think Hillary Clinton would accept?
Man, we're talking a lot of what ifs, and I mean, I don't like to talk about what ifs, but if you'd asked, like I said, any president in the history of time, if we have, which we have the proof that it was rigged and it was stolen, the following election, if you ask any president, they're going to say yes. I would accept the results if I lost. If this time that you guys can actually prove, because they've not proven a single time yet that this last election was not rigged. They have no evidence.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, we're on the good faith that the American people wouldn't steal from the other American people. It's essentially the feeling I get from this.
Right. Well, Trump did have lawsuits go to Wisconsin for recounts, and unfortunately, because of what he says in this, that you can't get a fair trial everywhere. Like, there's some Democratic areas that will not give you a fair trial. So, in which case, whenever Trump tried filing these civil law cases for the election fraud, of course they got turned down because it wasn't by a fair judge. And so,
no surprise here.
Yeah, again, I encourage everybody to watch this full length. Me and Devin obviously couldn't show it all, but yeah, it feels good to be back on, man. What do you think?
I think it's great, and I'm ready to really, talk about the things that need to get talked about. A lot of our listeners and viewers may not necessarily have the time and then the mental, strength to go through all this. I'm going to call it dumbassery. I really don't care. But I mean, it's just there's so many things going on right now, and you can agree with me full heartedly that it's mentally draining sometimes listening to stupid people.
Yes.
And I feel like, if we're capable of doing this, we could save a couple people in this world's brain cells. Listening to these dumb people talk. Like this town hall meeting, I generally feel, the synopsis of this town hall meeting is I understand Trump a little better and the things that he sees that are critical to fixing this country when or if he wins in 2024. To me, this feels very refreshing because we really haven't heard from Trump as much as at least I would like since the end of the 2020 election.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm sure you probably agree on different levels.
Sure. Yeah, I think that was a great episode though, man. Again, I encourage everybody to follow me and Devin on Twitter. You could also follow our podcast page on Facebook. Please go to YouTube, and if you would like to watch it there, you can watch the video on YouTube or Spotify. Find them both at The Goldberg Show. We're also on Apple as well. And yeah, anything else you'd like to say, Devin?
Nope. If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's Devin Marsh 14. I'll be changing that here really soon to something. I'll be posting on the next episode. I'll be changing it around a little bit and making like an unofficial Goldberg podcast Twitter, because everything I do on there is all political based. I mean, there might be a couple of sports things here and there that we're both big Blues fans, so I'll post occasional Blues thing on there, but it's all politics. Like that's all I use Twitter for is politics.
Yeah.
So,
and again, like I said earlier in the episode, Twitter has ever since Elon's taken over, you've really get a better engagement of Twitter now of news and up-to-date news, I should say, like right then and there. So yeah, I think it is great what has Elon done, and with that, we will talk to you guys next time.